sense, I think that is the obvious conclusion. I think what has been left unanswered is the very important role of the Attorney General in the entire fiasco, because under the Constitution, he is responsible for all legal advice to the Cabinet. So it means that when that note came to Cabinet, it was his responsibility to say that that note did not provide an explanation for Section 34 and Cabinet could not support it. Now, in addition to that, I think it is very important, and I believe that is the role of the press, to look very carefully at the timelines involved in these matters, because the timelines are what disclose the basis for the public perception of wrongdoing. When you look at the fact that Justice Bodo Singh delivered his decision on the 7th of November, and the Attorney General sat in Cabinet after the 7th of November to debate the bill, that bill was passed on the 29th of November. The Attorney General did not make a decision to not appeal until the 17th of December. So it means that while this bill was being debated and Section 34 was being passed, it would have been uppermost in his mind that Section 34 could have become a law which prevented persons from being charged and tried. And he made a decision not to appeal, clearly in the context of his participation in the passing of a law that prevented the very trial that Justice Bodo Singh relied on in his judgment. Now, the timelines are very important. Also importantly, it has come out in the press that during that debate, the Attorney General had a side meeting during the Senate debate with an independent senator and gave an assurance that Section 34, as it stands now, would not be implemented immediately.
The Prime Minister yesterday during the press conference stated that the AG was not here.
That also would not be correct, because if you look at what the Prime Minister said, she said he was not here up until the 3rd or the 4th of August. The Cabinet notice dated the 6th of August. So that's why I'm saying timelines are very important. So in a sense, what really has happened is that Minister Volney is the sacrificial lamb. But the real explanation, the true facts and the true analysis has not been put forward to the country.
A real explanation. Dr. Ghani, Prime Minister Kamla Prasad-Bissessa, however, has removed Herbert Volney from her ministerial post because he betrayed the trust of Cabinet, Parliament and the nation as a whole.
Well, the reality is that Minister Volney was a line minister for this, and therefore it would be awkward for the Attorney General to trespass on what the line minister is personally responsible and personally liable for. The constitutional doctrine of an individual ministerial responsibility is very clear, so that the issue with regard to the decision about not appealing and so on that Mr. Delson just spoke about is being linked to this. And the timelines are important to bear in mind. The House of Representatives dealt with this on the 18th of November, 2011. The Senate dealt with it on the 29th of November. And then the House of Representatives approved the Senate amendments on the 9th. Based on what Mr. Delton just said, it appears that our parliamentarians are extremely naive. If they could sit and see that go on and allow that to happen after the Attorney General made a decision that the government of Trinidad and Tobago, having signed an extradition order, which was a clear intent of the state to extradite these individuals to the United States, and making a decision not to appeal based on the fact that the judge in this particular matter said that they should have a trial in Trinidad and Tobago first before they are tried elsewhere. The question that is arising is another question, and perhaps suggests that there is a grand conspiracy.
It's a huge mess.
That is, and I'm on record, I was with you earlier this week. I reject the idea of a grand conspiracy because you cannot involve the opposition and independent senators in this conspiracy. And if we do, it means that they are absolutely naive to go along with it.
Now, we're going to take a very short break. When we come back, we'll continue this discussion. Good precedent, Madam Prime Minister. Even if so, Mr. Ramlogan's failure to detect the misfeasance plus his aggressive defense of the so-called error should disqualify him from continuing in any important position in this country. I'm Mayma Ramksoon. I'll see you on the next side of the break. That was a piece from an editorial. We, the members of the UNC Women's Arm, express our pride in the decisive and value-based leadership of Prime Minister Kamla Persad-Bissessar in handling the matters relating to the Section 34 fiasco. The Honourable Prime Minister has never lacked the courage to correct wrongs, makes tough decisions and to eliminate dishonesty and non-performance wherever it is found. That's a press statement from the UNC Women's Arm. How are we going to get out of this mess? The PR machinery, the arms of the parties, they're all coming out. We had the COP leader here this morning. They are all supporting the Prime Minister and, by extension, the Attorney General.
I think the way we get out of this is to deal with all the matters frontally and not to appear to be trying to deflect, which is what is happening. The Prime Minister's speech last night was very good, but factually it did not explain. Now, I want to come back to this because of a very important thing that Dr. Ghani said. While everyone is focused on Parliament, in these discussions, and you had a lot of the Prime Minister's statement being dedicated to the fact that everyone in Parliament voted for it. That is not the issue. The issue is why did Cabinet, why did the Executive approve the premature promulgation where Parliament only authorized the Executive to do so if certain preconditions were laid down? So there's a real issue that comes up as to what Parliament authorized by the Executive to do by the passing of the law and what the Executive did in fact do. And the real issue is not Parliament. And it is what the Executive did, and it has not been properly explained.
The Prime Minister stated that she did so, or the Minister at that time misled the Cabinet into thinking that proper consultations took place with the Chief Justice, the DPP, and several other key office holders. And
what you do to test that is to read the Cabinet note and ask the question whether the Minister misled the Cabinet in relation to the promulgation of Section 34. Nothing in the Cabinet note speaks to Section 34. So if they were misled, the misleading is even wider.
Well, I think that in the circumstances, former Minister Volney is not disputing the Prime Minister's statement last night, and in fact he says that he continues to support her and he accepts the responsibility. So I think that at the end of the day, you have to deal with the situation that presents itself. And the situation that has presented itself is that she has done an investigation. She has, based on the statement, spoken with the DPP and the Chief Justice, and she has satisfied herself that what the former minister told the Cabinet about the support of the Chief Justice and the DPP for early proclamation is what led the Cabinet to go along with it. That is the central issue, right. And that is the issue for which Mr. Volney has had to pay the price with regard to his dismissal. Mr. Volney is not contesting that publicly in today's newspapers. So that I think that the issue, therefore, is that if people were misled, it was that they were misled on the basis of the doctrine of individual ministerial responsibility. He was the line minister for this issue, and that is what has happened here.
We're going to go straight to the 7 a.m. newscast. When we come back, we'll continue this discussion. Stay with us.
Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago. I'm Maria Ramboli, and this is Headline News on CNC3 and the TBC Radio Network. Prime Minister Kamla Persad-Bissessar has dismissed Justice Minister Herbert Volney, saying that he deceived the Cabinet into believing that the Chief Justice and Director of Public Prosecutions had agreed to the early proclamation of Section 34. The Prime Minister, breaking her silence for the first time on the matter, made it clear that when Section 34 came to Cabinet, she received assurances from Minister Volney, and the Cabinet went with his word and approved the note for the President to proclaim. Clearing Attorney General Anand Ramlogan of any wrongdoing, the Prime Minister explained that with Section 34 proclaimed, the DPP came to the AG and expressed concern. This, she said, raised a red flag.
I contacted the Honourable Chief Justice to inform him about the apparent contradiction between his concern on the early proclamation and our understanding through the Cabinet provided by the Honourable Minister of Justice and our discussions with the Minister of Justice. I humbly requested a report on the issue. The Honourable Chief Justice provided a written report, and he also provided notes taken at a meeting held on July 24th, 2012, with a specially appointed interministerial committee.
Satisfied that there was no consultation with the DPP and the CJ on any partial proclamation, she sought to protect other cabinet ministers from blame. All fingers were now pointing at the Justice Minister, Herbert Volney.
I have advised His Excellency the Acting President Timothy Hammersmith to immediately revoke the appointment of Mr. Herbert Volney, MP, as Minister of Justice. I have also advised that Ms. Christine Moore, Attorney at Law of Lambo Village, Tobago, be appointed a Senator and the Minister of Justice.
She apologized to the Chief Justice and the DPP for the debacle and made it clear that the Cabinet would not be brought down by the negative actions of one or a few.
The integrity of my government will not be compromised by anyone, regardless of the office they hold. The consequences of such action are clear. I hold everyone who's entrusted to their job to be accountable. And whenever I feel such trust is compromised or integrity breached, I will act decisively.
She told the media she believes the entire country would be stronger for this and that it has only strengthened her resolve as she apologized to the nation on behalf of herself and on her cabinet's behalf. In other news, PTSD workers across the country will embark on yet another day of industrial action. Hundreds were left stranded across the nation yesterday as industrial action at the Public Transportation Service Corporation intensified. Bus drivers refused to move buses, saying they have not been paid. They have also raised concerns about stalled negotiations and health and safety issues. Stay tuned for another news update at the top of the hour, and our major newscast is at 7 this evening right here on CNC3.
Welcome back to Trinidad and Tobago. I'm Him Ramsden. Thanks so much for staying with us. We're continuing to look at the firing of former Justice Herbert Volney, the Minister of Justice. Reforming the image, restoring where we are. Mr. Delson, you are an active attorney at law. You are fully aware of the problems in the legal system. The preliminary inquiries, everyone is saying the legislation is not bad legislation. So if it's not bad, everybody's voting for it. Why are we now here?
Because it was brought into force without the necessary infrastructure to allow it to work. The legislation is predicated upon a court system being in place, staff being in place to deal with the backlog. In the absence of that, it's unworkable. That's why the whole furor has developed with Section 34. How could you have an amnesty program in place without a system in place to deal with the numerous applications?
Is the Prime Minister doing enough? Has this mess gone away? Did she restore the image of her cabinet, her government, the LRC, and all that's happened?
Well, the cabinet and the government took a big hit over this issue. So that what she did yesterday was to start a process of trying to rebuild that trust and confidence, and also to rebuild the image, because having taken a hit like this and having revealed what she revealed last night, it clearly shows that there are fundamental weaknesses in the system, quite apart from the frailties of the human mind, which is another issue in respect of the issue of trust and accommodation and performance. I think that what we're seeing here is a deeper scenario with regard to the way in which our system operates. I've seen a number of persons are revealing, well, they weren't really following this and they didn't know that, and I heard Minister Ramadas say this morning that perhaps Parliament was naive. So I'm very surprised at all this, but I think it points to the fact that there are systemic weaknesses, because the Prime Minister referred in her statement yesterday to a meeting, an interministerial meeting with the Chief Justice and others on the 24th of July, which clearly indicated that they were talking about proclamation at a later time. So that I think she cast the statements made by Minister Volney to the Cabinet in the context of the fact that the only thing that they had from the Chief Justice was a meeting on the 24th of July, which was pointing to proclamation at a later time. so that the advice that was given in cabinet that there had been consultation with the Chief Justice and the DPP and that it was okay to proclaim Section 34 at an earlier time really it becomes the crux of the matter. There's no way the Chief Justice or the DPP had given that kind of consent, and clearly what she revealed last night was that they had not.
Rowley.